So I'm delighted to say joining us for the very first time on the podcast is Richie Mills, Brighton correspondent from Sussex Live. Richie, great to have you on the podcast with us for the first time. As I mentioned there, Brighton going great guns in the league at the moment, 8th in the table. Roberto De Zerbi, clearly a far better manager than Graham Potter ever was, proving that, the Seagulls fans, who some of them weren't too disappointed to see Potter go. De Zerbi's coming, doing a great job at the moment. A disappointing result last time out, a 1-0 home defeat to Fulham last Premier League game, of course. But other than that, all looking pretty rosy on the South Coast this season.
Yeah, well, first, thanks a lot for having me on. I think a lot of people were worried when Graham Potter left for Chelsea in September. They just thought, he's taken Brighton from a team, just above the relegation zone to a top 10 team, the best ever finish in Brighton's history of 9th. They're thinking, oh, God, the wheels are going to fall off. But then De Zerbi's actually made Brighton maybe better to watch. They get the ball forward quicker. They love to sort of lure you in at the back, stand on the ball, and then use their sort of passing ability and numerical advantage further up the pitch to kind of outnumber you. They're playing some fantastic stuff, and they're beating, the top teams. They thrashed Chelsea in a pretty sobering return for Graham Potter at the AMEX back in October. And I think De Zerbi basically said that Brighton are at 60% of their capacity, so the future could be very bright for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one thing you sort of mentioned about goal scoring there, you only have to look back through their last 4 or 5 games. Obviously didn't score, say, 1-0 defeat against Fulham at home last time out, 1-1 draw with Palace, beat Bournemouth 1-0 before that, and then obviously that win over Liverpool 2-1 in the FA Cup. Towards the last month or so, Pearce's sort of goal scoring hasn't exactly been rampant in front of goal. Is there anything in that, or is that just sort of, the way it's gone?
Yes, I think one player that's been a standout for Brighton over the last few months is Kaoru Mitoma, the Japanese winger. I think he scored 7 goals in his last 13 games or so. But what teams are doing now is that they're doubling up on him because he's so lethal. He's so quick, just can leave you for dead. Also, I think the goals that were being shared around a bit are drying up a little. So Alexis McAllister hasn't quite been as good since returning from the World Cup. He started the start of January very well, scored I think a couple of goals against Middlesbrough, but hasn't quite been able to add to it. Pascal Gross as well, he scored I think 6 goals this season. So I think maybe there is a little bit of a case of teams doing their homework a bit on Brighton and trying to say, we're going to pack the midfield, we're going to sit back, and you've got to try and break us down. And sometimes Brighton aren't quite incisive enough in the attacking third to do that. And also the likes of 18-year-old Evan Ferguson had a bit of an injury, and he's sort of getting back up to speed again after scoring a few goals earlier on this year. So I think it's a combination of teams, doing their homework, some performances not quite being as good, but I do think that Brighton have a lot of strengths, and more often than not, they win the midfield battle, and it's key having sort of McAllister and Caicedo there. But also just a little addition to that, Adam Lallana has been out for a couple of weeks, and I think Brighton actually are really missing him in sort of that attacking midfielder number 10 role. He's such a great leader on the pitch, but he's got even at sort of he's come up to 35 this year, but he's playing the best football he's played at Brighton since joining from 2020. So he's also been a big loss.
Yeah, sort of probably strange to some people thinking, Adam Lallana being a big miss to a team. Many people think his best days would be behind him. But fair enough. He's always a talented player with a habit of playing well against West Ham when he was at Southampton before he went to Liverpool. The Roberto De Zerbi effect, Richie, what's the sense, when Potter left, like you said, people thinking about the wheels falling off. He seems to be the sort of character that football fans absolutely love. And is he not proof that the way it's run down there, Paul Barber obviously, pulling the strings, that the way Brighton are run in comparison to some other clubs in the Premier League, you'll know West Ham fans have had their grievances with our owners over the past few years. Brighton and Brentford are probably heralded as the two standout football club ownership models in the Premier League. Is it not just proof, the De Zerbi effect, that it's actually above him, where just as much of the excellent work is being done as it is in the touchline?
Yes, it's a good question. I think it's a combination of both. I think Brighton fans and even the Brighton hierarchy actually feel that De Zerbi might be a better coach and take Brighton to higher levels than Potter could. But also, the point you raised about the kind of the board and that sort of thing. So Brighton have got this, I think it was from The Apprentice years ago, bounce back ability. They kind of, they lose Ben White, who was one of their best players a couple of seasons ago, but then the following season their defense improves in terms of conceding goals. They lose Marc Cucurella for obviously they bought him for 15 million, sold him for nearly 4 times that amount, but now they've got a left back, Purvis Estupiñán, who could be better, and he's actually providing more assists. Basuma left, and everyone's thinking, oh no, that's a massive gaping hole there, and Moises Caicedo slotted in fantastically. So they just seem to have this sort of conveyor belt of talent that just keeps on being produced. And with De Zerbi, I think he was quick to sort of praise Graham Potter for sort of laying the foundation to allow them to have the success. But I think there's so much sort of basically the former Brighton technical director Dan Ashworth basically said that Brighton is like the spokes of a bicycle. So you've got all these little strands that go off in these different departments, and they're all really well drilled, and they're talking with each other. So basically, when one goes out, another one just comes in. So it's the whole system that is really well put in place.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And obviously, Paul Barber, Tony Bloom putting those spokes or that framework in place, I guess. This has got to be applauded. Richie, I've vowed on this season to not let myself get so mentally dragged down by the fact that West Ham United have not beaten Brighton and Hove Albion in any competition since their return to the Premier League. The last time we recorded a victory over them was the 14th of April 2012. I actually got the date wrong elsewhere on this podcast. I thought it was 2013. So we're approaching in on 11 years that since West Ham's last victory over Brighton. It's been 11 attempts since, 5 defeats, 6 draws. The 6 draws are in the spin, but it's on the spin between 2019 and 2021. The last 2 games we've played against the Seagulls resulted in a 3-1 defeat and then a 2-0 defeat. Last time out, I've said I'm just going to ignore it. I'm not thinking about it anymore. I'm choosing to not. I've already accepted that we're not going to do it again. In my head, West Ham will never beat Brighton and Hove Albion until the end of time, and I've decided, as a sort of modern, progressive, liberal young man as I like to be, I've just decided that I'm not going to carry the negative emotion attached because last season, when we beat lost last time, I was just absolutely. I just couldn't cope with it anymore. We had a lot of Brighton fans getting in the comments on our YouTube channel saying, it's just this sort of entitlement that makes people, hate clubs like fans of bigger clubs or clubs who think they're bigger than us, blah, blah, blah. Little old Brighton. And it's not any of that. I think I really like Brighton. I like the city. I like all the Brighton fans I've ever met. I like the kit. I love the way the club's run. The football's good. Everything about the club is great. But the fact that West Ham have been able to beat them in 11 meetings just infuriates me. We've beaten all the other teams, the top 6, at least once since then. It's just one of those weird little glitches that football throws up every now and then. What do you make of it from your stance? Because not a single win in 11, where arguably the two sides are at a relatively similar level. It is just one of those odd things that happens in football, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just firstly, I hope you feel a bit better after that kind of venting, but you feel a bit more catharsis therapy. It's just a weird bogey team thing. I think that Leeds United with Cardiff City, they've won 2 out of 20 in the last 20 years. It's just one of those bizarre things that gets thrown up. But I mean, if you look at, so I started covering Brighton in September 2020, and the one that was interesting for me was there was, I think, a couple of times West Ham definitely should have won. I think the Neil Maupay late goal last season, the overhead bicycle kick, that was a game where West Ham probably deserved to win, but couldn't quite get over the line. And I think even last season at the AMEX, when I think it was Antonio scored that really good left-footed strike into the corner. I thought this is finally, because I've got quite a few West Ham mates who say the same thing. They hate Brighton, just because I don't understand how it works. But they thought this is. I think I got a few texts saying this is finally going to happen, and then obviously the second half happened. But I'm not sure if it's a case of because it's obviously Brighton have had like 3 different managers in that time, so it's not so much like a stylistic matchup. Maybe it's I don't know. It could be potentially like a mental block, or I think
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's just every single time the fixture comes around again, I latch on to, I'm like, it's different this time. Brighton are completely, it doesn't matter what form Brighton are in. It doesn't matter what form West Ham are in. It doesn't matter whether it's home or away. And it is genuinely at that stage now where you just go, well, we're not, it doesn't matter. Like, we're just not going to win. Like, do you know what I mean? It sort of gets to that after, like, when someone says you haven't beaten them in 6 meetings, you go, that's quite a lot. And then when it's like, then it sort of becomes a thing. And then the nature of some of the games as well. And it's at that stage now, 11. I mean, 11 times. There's so many things that have happened since, we last, I mean, obviously we last beat them in 2012, but then there was a 5-year gap. We weren't in the same division. So October 2017. And they're all like high scoring games. They're always reasonably entertaining, but we never come out on the right end of it. Looking ahead, obviously we have already agreed that West Ham won't win the game. But looking ahead to that game at the AMEX, Richie, what do you think? How's it going to play out style-wise, do you think?
Well, I guess just obviously I don't know enough about West Ham. But from a Brighton perspective, they will they love to kind of dominate the ball. That's like basically all the midfielders have like been told to have like at least 100 touches of the ball in the game. That's like what De Zerbi wants, and he wants them to front foot ball. I think he said basically they just basically kind of want to make the all the running their way. It's just like it's all about us. If we can execute our plan, then hopefully we can win. It'll be interesting to see. Brighton's got a few injury issues that have come up. So I went to De Zerbi's press conference today, and the left back Purvis Stupinian is missing the Stoke game tomorrow with a slight, I think, tightness in his leg. Solly March is missing the game. Levi Colwell is missing the game. Billy Gilmore is missing the game. Danny Welbeck's back, but there's a potential.
None of those absences will make me feel any more confident. You could tell me that the under-16s are going to be playing on the weekend. I would have no more confidence we're going to get a result. But yeah, carry on.
But yeah, I guess with Brighton, you raised it earlier, they haven't been as free-flowing of late. And obviously West Ham's 4-0 win would have done them a world of good against Forest. So, but I do think that, West Ham will have to maybe even be better than that in terms of, obviously that kind of, I think 15-minute spell that he had was fantastic. But I think there are definitely, West Ham can be got at. Obviously, they're not having the best season. And I think a team like Brighton, who can really pass the ball around very, very quick and slick, they can definitely hurt teams. But I don't think, I think it will be, I mean, usually all these games are very close, apart from maybe the last 2. They've always been like pretty much draws or but 1 goal. So I think it'll be a pretty tight affair. I think Brighton may just edge it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a draw.
No, I think it's odd because whenever, funny enough, whenever, the opposition views we do, whenever people say what you said there about teams liking to dominate the ball and all that, me and most West Ham fans who've watched us under David Moyes the past few seasons so successfully as well, go, that's a result. Because we don't mind that at all. Moisey is quite happy to have 30, 35, 40% possession in most games and try and pick off on the counter-attack. That he has tried this season, which is probably why we've struggled to perhaps try and dominate the ball a little bit more. But I find away from home, that's there is that, ability among West Ham's players to perhaps do that a little bit more and absorb a bit of the pressure and let the other team knock the ball around a little bit. Because at London Stadium, obviously, there's a bit more of a pressure from the fans, the home crowd, and that sort of thing to dominate a bit more, at least be in the game a bit more. Which, weirdly, hearing you say all that gives me a bit more confidence that, not that we'll win, of course, but that we that we might at least score a couple of goals, because I just find that won't matter at all to Moisey away from home. You haven't got the pressure of the crowd. If you're just sitting back and absorbing, that's okay. I am a little bit concerned, however, that, like you said, the feeling is pretty good at Brighton at the moment. You've had a bit of, or the Seagulls have had a bit of rest, and we're going to Manchester United on Wednesday night in the FA Cup, which is going to be a bit of travelling involved in that, of course, and then the game itself. Yeah, I can see it being a very cagey encounter as far as West Ham are concerned. If we're able to pick them off on a break, then happy days. I would back us to score, but I don't think there's going to be any real desire from David Moyes to be going and trying to play Brighton at their own game at the moment, when, albeit we're off the back of a 4-0 win, confidence is still reasonably fragile, I think. But Richie, listen, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on the podcast tonight. I really appreciate you giving us your time on all things Brighton. Richie Mills from Sussex Live there. But Richie, before we let you go, just give us a score prediction: West Ham v Brighton at the AMEX this weekend.
I think I'm going to go 2-1 Brighton. But just one quick point I want to say. So Brighton lost to Fulham 1-0, and Brighton had 65% possession, 21 shots to West Ham's 5. Fulham won 1-0, got them on the break. So it could happen. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate, honestly, though, I've decided, Richie, that it's the hope that kills me. So you actually think you're being helpful by trying to give me something to hold on to there. I'm more than happy to I just want you to tell me that West Ham get thrashed, because I'm all right with that. And I'm making a conscious choice to let go of the anger about it.
You are a very good team. You got Europe the last 2 years. I feel like this is like, I mean, Moyes sometimes does have these type of seasons when it does go, it's peak and then trough type thing. But I still think I still think you'll come good. But
again, Richie, what you've done there, you've just highlighted the fact that in the best 2 seasons West Ham have had in my lifetime, we still failed to beat Brighton and Hove Albion across 4 fixtures. But listen, Richie, it's been great having you on. Richie Mills from Sussex Live there, Brighton correspondent. Thanks very much for giving us your time.